This painting was stolen at gunpoint, and once before that with a ladder. You know the face. You have probably carried it around in your pocket, but that one is a copy. The real thing is behind glass, and it has a past the copy does not. Down in one corner, a stain, where water got in once and never left. A mark from one of those two robberies. The Scream, Edvard Munch, 1893. But there is no single scream. There are four. Munch made this image 4 times between 1893 and 1910, 2 in paint, 2 in pastel. Line them up and you have 4 bodies of one picture. The first of them, the 1893 painting, was the first ever shown in public. Under the paint there is not even canvas, it is cardboard. Then Munch cut a 5th loose. In 1895, he drew the image onto a lithographic stone, and a Paris journal, La Revue Blanche, printed it. That is how the face escaped. The copies never stopped. The bodies stayed behind. 4 fragile things behind glass. One of these 4 carries that stain from the corner. Which body, and how it got there? The answer starts where the picture starts, on a real road above Oslo. Follow the railing, the long diagonal running from the figure back into the picture. It is real, a road on the hill of Ekeberg, above Oslo and the fjord. Something happened to Munch on that road. He set it down in his diary in January 1892. I was walking along the road with 2 friends. The sun was setting. Suddenly the sky turned blood red. I paused, feeling exhausted, and leaned on the fence. There is a lurid story told about this spot, that a slaughterhouse stood below, and on some days you could hear the animals. The record is thinner than that story, and darker. Thinner because the slaughterhouse survives only as a suggestion, nothing about what could be heard. Darker because of the other building at the foot of the hill, the asylum. While he painted this, his sister Laura was a patient inside it. Munch did not believe that illness stayed at the foot of the hill. I inherited 2 of mankind's most frightful enemies, he wrote, the heritage of consumption and insanity. The question was never what the road sounded like, it was whether the thing in his bloodline was coming for him too. Hold that question, it does not let him go. Before the thieves arrive, come close to this first body. Closer than the glass usually allows. Up in the sky of the picture, there is handwriting. 1 penciled sentence, so faint it is almost not there. Kan kun være malet af en gal mand. Can only have been painted by a madman. The critic Robert Hughes put it plainly. Munch scribbled it there himself, a taunt thrown back at his critics, or a fear written where only he would know to look. We cannot say which. Either way, the first body already carries 1 hidden sentence. It will not be the last mark it is made to keep. February the 12th, 1994. In Lillehammer, the Winter Olympics opened. That same day, in Oslo, 2 men set a ladder against the National Gallery. For the festivities, the Scream had been moved down to a lower floor. One of the thieves fell off the ladder. He climbed back up. They broke a window, took the first body, and were gone. They left a note. "Thanks for the poor security." A ransom demand came. $1 million. The gallery refused. Then, a sting. British police, working with the Getty, by the 7th of May, the picture was back. Not 1 new mark on it. In January 1996, 4 men were convicted. Among them, Paul Enger, convicted in 1988 of taking another Munch. A canvas with 2 names, Love and Pain, or Vampire. Then, even that came undone. The British agents had entered Norway under false identities. The convictions were overturned. So that is how the world protects this thing. Move it, guard it, refuse the ransom, run the sting. Which leaves one question. Before the guards and the vaults, who was protecting it? The answer waits at a house outside Oslo. Leave the museums for a moment, leave the vaults. Step off the route, out of the city, to a house called Ikli, Munch's estate, where he spent his last decades. Look at what is standing out in the open. Finished paintings, outdoors, left out in the wind and the weather for years on end. He did it on purpose. He had a name for it, his horse doctor's cure. He wanted what the weather did to them. The colour bleached and ran, the surface cracked and went brittle. Now set a second fact beside that one. Munch never married. He called his paintings his children. I have nobody else, he said. Hold the two together. He called them his children, and he left them out in the rain, and he would not be parted from them. When sales broke pieces out of his frieze of life, he stopped selling paintings altogether. In April 1940, days after Germany invaded, he had the papers drawn up. Everything to the city of Oslo. 1,000 paintings, 15,000 prints. Now look again at the thefts. They read differently. Ladders, vaults, verdicts. The world treating this object as precious beyond measure. Its maker left its siblings standing in the yard. Every theft in this story happens to a child of the man who left the others out in the rain. Now, back to the maker himself, to the years he needed a cure of his own. One body still remains, and it comes from the worst years of Munch's life. The question from the road above Oslo had begun to answer itself. The thing in his bloodline was closing in. In 1902, at the end of an unfortunate love affair, a gunshot took part of one finger of his left hand. That is all the record says. A wound and no story. My condition was verging on madness, he wrote of 1908. It was touch and go. He committed himself to Dr. Daniel Jacobsen's clinic in Copenhagen. 8 months of rest, diet, and electric shock. Jacobsen held real power, the power to declare him deranged and commit him for life. Munch, the patient, painted the doctor, full length, face on, hands on hips, a man who has never once doubted himself. And in a sketch of his own treatment, he recorded the professor bringing a positive masculine force and a negative feminine force to his fragile brain. He walked out in 1909, recovered, and in 1910, turning back through his old images, he made the scream one final time. The last body, the one the scar is waiting for. The 22nd of August 2004, the Munch Museum, Oslo, broad daylight. Masked men carrying guns walked in and took 2 pictures. The first was the last body, the 1910 scream. The second was Madonna. Here, she is an empty frame. She goes through this story unseen. The museum stayed shut for almost a year. For 2 years, nothing. Then a rumour that both had been burned. Then, in August 2006, both came back. How and from where has never been made public. Madonna returned torn, with small holes through her, and the scream came home marked. Moisture damage, low in the left corner. Somewhere in those 2 missing years, water got in and never left. The scar never healed. That September it went back on view, scar and all. 2 of the convicted men were ordered to pay 750 million kroner. A scarred survivor, home behind glass. So what is such a thing worth now? The market was about to answer, out loud. May 2012, at Sotheby's, the 1895 pastel came up for sale. Of the 4 bodies, this is the only one whose frame Munch painted with his own hand, painted so it could carry his poem. Bidding opened at $40 million. It did not stop for over 12 minutes. When it ended, the price was just under $120 million. The auctioneer, Tobias Meyer, called it worth every penny. That is, the price of the quietest body in a scarred family. But the poem on the frame answers a different question. Onto the wood, Munch wrote what he said the scream was. His answer is the last thing left to read. So come back one last time to the face in your pocket. You know now what the real thing is. Not an icon, a survivor. Read its body like a diary. The penciled sentence in its sky calling its maker mad. The scar in its corner from the 2 years it went missing. A record kept in pencil and in water across a century and more. 4 fragile bodies guarded like treasure, made by a man who called them his children and left their siblings out in the rain. And what did he say the scream was? His title for them was never only the Scream. He gave them a German name, Der Schrei der Natur, the scream of nature. The words are his own. My friends walked on, and I stood there trembling with anxiety, and I sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. Sensed, passing through. Look at the figure again, hands pressed to the sides of its head. One reading, and it was his own account, is that the mouth is not making the scream. This is the face of someone hearing it. Stolen twice, held to ransom, scarred for good, sold for a fortune. And through all of it, the figure has held exactly still, listening. That is what you carry in your pocket. Not a scream, a survivor, still hearing one. The Scream. Edvard Munch.